But the one key factor that we miss is asking our family. We forget that. We assume that's what they want, and we don't ask them.
Hello and welcome back to the Tell Me Mas podcast. My name is Victor Cornejo. Thank all of you for joining me today. This is the very last show of 2024, and it's absolutely been an exciting year. Much to look forward to in 2025. It's been an interesting year for sure. And really, I want to focus this whole episode on, all right, how do we approach next year and how do we make the best of it? How do we set those intentions, goals, resolutions? We'll talk about whether those words even make sense. To help me make sense of many things, as they always do when I speak to them, I have with me Nancy Crespo-Richardson. She is a licensed professional counselor, where she got her degree at Cal State Bernardino and her postgraduate degree in, I always have to read it because it's long, counseling, psychology, and marriage and family therapy at Central Texas A&M. Also with us is Mariana Fernández. She is the first bilingual Peloton instructor on that platform, teaching yoga, running, and meditation classes. She also studied at TCU here in wonderful North Texas, along with getting her graduate degree at Purdue. So two very, very amazing women that are far more intelligent and more studied than I. How are you guys?
I'm great. Thanks for asking. I'm excited
Absolutely.
to hear what's been up with you guys.
I know.
Yeah,
Thank you so
yeah.
much for having us, Victor.
No, absolutely. Whenever I, want to have just a good conversation, get some advice, and really help set people up, in the right way to really achieve their goals, I can't think of anyone better to go to than the both of you, frankly. So, yeah, let's get into it. 2024, kind of a crazy year. Let me start with you, Nancy. Did you start that, let's say last year, with very specific goals or intentions?
Yes, I did. I had some very specific ones and I had some broader ones. And I will say that the main one that I wanted to meet, I did not meet. But I'm okay with it because I've been doing a lot of reflection. And because I had a broader goal, I was able to focus more on what did get accomplished. And when we use words like resolution, the New Year's resolution, when we look at the definition of resolute, it means we've come to a conclusion to something. We found the solution to a problem. So I just have this problem to continue to figure out how do I solve it next year, I guess.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
How about you, Mariana?
It's funny because I always start, I don't know about traditions in your household, but we have these like very, whether they're Mexican or Latina traditions of like the 12 grapes that you bring in. So, like, what are the wishes that you're having? And then, the quirky ones, whether it's jumping off of a chair to leave past things that didn't serve you behind, or going around the cul-de-sacs to make sure that you travel a lot this year. You run around with a suitcase in your hand, starting on kind of the end of the last year, I really begin to think, what is it that I want to bring about in the upcoming year? And for me, there were a lot of professional things that I had at the forefront that were met in a lot of ways and that weren't. And I think that the year brought about a lot of more obstacles than I thought it would, especially during the beginning, which kind of really switched and made a hard pivot to some of those resolutions. So it's interesting to see how, especially as I get older, I think that those, in quotation, like resolutions, become more defined as I say them out loud or say them to myself, and also how I approach them when the year comes along.
And Nancy, I imagine in your business, sort of looking back or looking forward, to people come to you a lot. I imagine trying to set goals and intentions for the year coming up. How important is it to actually reflect on, what did or didn't occur in the last year? Is that kind of like, having to confront sort of where maybe it came up a little short?
Yeah, even though we talk in these using words like resolutions and things like that, I like to focus on how satisfied are you in the different areas of your life because we kind of look at it in bulk and we get very specific with resolutions. And why not looking at having wishes? I like the idea of wishes instead. Like these are preferences, these are areas where we would like more satisfaction in instead of like seeing it from a place or a lens of lacking. I'm lacking this. So I actually have us reflect more on what do you want more? What went well this year that you want more of? What did you get done? What did you like? What changes? I love how Mariana said, like, it forces us to pivot our point of view. And, we all have changes. There's things that are expected and unexpected. And when we make our goals so rigid or so binary, like you did it or you didn't do it, you check the blocks, it makes it very hard to pivot and to be flexible and to give ourselves grace.
Got it. Yeah, this year, at the beginning of the year, I made, I said I got to get working on this fitness. I've got an amazing Peloton sitting right there. That yeah, I use. Do I use it enough? No. And I invested in every brand new camera that I could, every lens, and it did not make me look thinner or more healthy whatsoever. And so my wife, Rachel, she did an amazing job of really helping me sort of get down to eating the right way and exercising the right amount with consistency. Did I get exactly to where I wanted to get to? No. And so I've still got, a few more pounds to get there because this camera makes my head just look like this. So if I can reduce it a little bit
No.
more, great. So yeah, I still have work to do there, but it is hard, I have to admit, when you're making sacrifices and you're trying and you don't quite get there. You kind of get to like, dang, it's like, come on, like what more do I have to do? And so Rachel said, hey, remember where you were in February when you made this decision. Remember where you were. That's 25 pounds different. And she's like, that's like a healthy sort of way of doing it, right? And
Yes.
more importantly, it's look at how much you've enjoyed incorporating, the habits that lead to that, which is the exercise portion. I kind of rediscovered how good I feel after even a 20-minute walk on the treadmill.
Mhm.
So maybe it's the path as opposed to just the ultimate goal and journey.
Yeah, it's not right now that what you're saying. It's so common because you have your macro goal, you know, and then what are the micro steps you're taking in between, and what are the little things that you're changing for that macro, that ultimate goal. And you may put it on a vision board. You may say it to yourself at the beginning, I want XYZ. And then it's the steps that you take towards that. And oftentimes, as we start to take those steps, it gets so lost. What's the expression in English? I don't know it correctly, but don't lose the forest for the trees or the trees for the
Yeah,
forest. One of those.
yeah, right,
But it's truly, you have this vision of where you see yourself or what you want for yourself. And in the journey of, oftentimes, to exactly what you said, you stop celebrating the little things that are getting you towards that, whether or not you achieve macro said goal. And so you lose a lot of a sense of accomplishment, of a sense of awareness of like, what have I done thus far that has really helped me at least attempt this thing that I really manifested or wanted. And because we are in such a society of like award driven or like satisfaction based, like there's this drive to like accomplish, and it has to be like the medal that you get at the end. I
mm-hmm,
see it a lot
mm-hmm,
even in like the running community, that you lose sight of like, it's not even the marathon, but like, what is it like to achieve mile 1, mile 5, mile 8? It's like all of those steps that are leading you towards that ultimate goal.
right, right. It excuse me. So, Nancy, have you heard of, I guess, this sort of SMART approach, SMART, it's specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, timed.
Yes,
It sounds very corporate.
it's very
And
clinical.
yeah, really, because yeah, it sounds very, hotel, conference room, luncheon with terrible chicken cordon bleu and a
People
really
love their
motivated,
acronyms.
yeah, and a really motivated guy with great hair telling you he's going to help you make your sales goals and just follow the SMART system. How do you feel about that? About those acronyms?
Ooh, that's a loaded question because that is the approach that we take in therapy for insurance purposes. We have to have something that's measurable. We have to be showing insurers that, look, we're accomplishing this. Look at how well they're doing. And what we don't take into account is the satisfaction, like Mariana was saying, like the steps in between, like what is the actual journey, as you were saying, like are we enjoying it? Because goodness forbid we actually accomplish the goal, and what if you don't like it there when you get there? Like we never stop to think, like what if it actually doesn't make me happy, or what if I don't like the way I look, 30 pounds lighter or 100 pounds lighter or whatever it is. Like what if you don't like it and you've
Or how
put
you
all
feel.
your,
Yeah.
yeah, all your eggs in the basket, and you
Look, if I
you
get
also
rich this year, I promise you, I will be fine. I, I just want to try some. Just give me a try at that
just give
goal
it a
of being
try.
completely financially independent. Give me that opportunity. I promise, I'll be happy.
You sound like me. I'm like, if I can't just get my body from when I was 20 something, I promise I won't mess it up this time.
Right. But it was so fun.
Yeah, but I will say, like, I mean, goals are nice to achieve, and it's nice to have something measurable because it motivates us. What I do find though that motivates us a lot more is having community, is having
Mm.
accountability. If you're doing it with someone else and there are people who are encouraging you and not criticizing, that makes the journey so much more fun. Um, and so the way I like to look at the SMART goals is having, like I said earlier, that broader goal. So my goal was I wanted to move more. I wanted to be more active. Did I want to lose weight? Absolutely. Most of us, not all of us, but most of us, that's a goal, right? Um, and I wanted to run a half marathon again. And I got up to mile 10. I was doing, walk run. And my first one was supposed to be at Disney. And it
Oh,
was,
wow.
yes, I was so excited. I was looking forward to it. This was like my big moment to get back into running. And there was a thunderstorm. So they cut down our half marathon to 7 miles. And I was like, all that training, I had gotten to like 10 or 11 miles. And that was going to be like the thing that defined, yes, you're a runner again.
Mm.
And Disney cut it short for me. So there was a second run, and I face planted. I kid you not. I slid on some loose gravel and I face planted on the track. I think it was mile 2 or 3, and I finished it. It was a hot chocolate run. I think it was like a 10K. I finished it, but the next day it was just so painful. And from then, ask me if I ran again. I have not. So reflecting on the
Mm.
broader goal was I wanted to keep moving. What I have done, and I was so happy, I'm happy to report that I've been doing Zumba at least a minimum of once a week.
Hey,
But and it brings me joy. I love it. I love dancing. And even on the day where I don't feel like dancing, even if I'm just two-stepping in the back, I'm moving. And that is one thing that when I reflected back, yeah, I may not have hit all of the smaller goals, the smart part, the objectives of it, but my main goal of staying in movement was accomplished.
that's
I think
huge.
you bring up such an interesting point, Nancy, because I have many thoughts about what you just told me about your last year. But number one, you are absolutely 100% a runner, whether you made it to that half marathon or not. So, I mean, those are things that it's another topic of like how we talk to ourselves or what we believe or
Hmm.
don't believe. Um, all that training is that much as part of your journey, like we were talking about earlier. Um, and then you were also dealing with external forces, which are the uncontrollable things that
Yes.
when we do have whatever we're manifesting or putting out there, that you don't always know how they're going to result because you can write the things down and do a step by step or schedule things in. But you were dealing with, in this case, the elements, like something that was so completely out of your control that the race had to shift. But that doesn't shift who you are and what you trained and what you've done, or an injury or the fact that you felt like it's something you couldn't have predicted. You're like, oh, I'm probably going to fall on this, that's going to affect obviously a lot of how you pick yourself up, what you choose to do afterwards. So there's all of these factors that we truly have no control over how we do what we do that play a part in what we choose to do. Like if it wasn't running for you or continuing to train for half marathon, by the way, you are still a runner, like bar
Mhm.
none. That's still a fact. But you're like, oh, I'm going to take this time. I'm going to take a step back. And like this kind of movement brings me joy. So I'm going to, like you, Victor, like maybe I'm going to hop back on the bike, which I abandoned for a little bit. Or like I just came back from a bike ride with my nephew and was like, ooh, I haven't been on a bike in a long time. It's like, let me
Right.
rediscover this. Let me re-explore this. Because at a time that I personally am feeling like a little unmotivated or like a little bit down, like what's going to spark joy in me right now? And those are key factors in continuing towards that macro goal, I guess, that we were talking about earlier.
Got it. Right. And as I was just reading over some articles, trying to, wrap my head around what I wanted to do for this next year, I found this to be really fascinating. So, top five, this article called it resolutions, right? Um, so, in order of the top five, right here, 52%. This is 23, by the way, 2023. Okay. Top five resolutions. 52% get more exercise, 50% eat healthier, 40% lose weight, 39% save money, 37% spend more time with family and friends. Okay.
Mm.
Now, the top five resolutions for 2024 were 48% get more exercise. So that went down a little bit. 38% improve financial situation. So that, shot up to number two.
Mm-hmm.
And then number three, 36% take care of their mental health. So,
Yes.
yeah, and then followed by lose weight and eat healthier. Now, Nancy, I thought that was pretty fascinating when I saw how a completely different category shows up in one year versus the next. And honestly, I hadn't thought of improving or being more mindful of my own mental health as being a goal that I would make, right? I don't know why I'd never thought about that. What what does that mean to you, or what should that mean to people, if that is it a goal right now or could potentially be a goal, and how do I go after that?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's when I also see a big shoot up, just like the gyms, we see it in mental health. Like people really want to come in and feel better, which I'm so excited for. And I think it goes back to, and interesting that the finances shot up to number two, because that is one of the main reasons that people come to therapy because they're financially stressed. And that's actually one of the number one causes for divorces and separations in finances, because people are just, it's so stressful and we don't know how to manage our stress. And it kind of goes back with that exercise. Like, I'm glad that it shifted from losing weight to more movement, because movement can bring joy. And joy helps with all those endorphins and all the hormones that help us to help regulate our emotions and to help regulate our mental health. We are able to manage our emotions a little better, we're able to process our thoughts a lot with the in the from a place of peace, right? From a place of more calm. I always tell people, when we're feeling stressed out and you go for this walk, what are you doing during this walk? What are you thinking about? Because if you're thinking about how you're going to answer back to your spouse when you come back home, that was not a mental health walk. That was a preparation. You were preparing for a fight, So what we do when we're working out and what we're thinking about, because I feel like a lot of people think that that's what therapists tell them, is like, oh, go to the gym. But if you're thinking mean thoughts at the gym, or if you're talking awful to yourself at the gym, it's not a good, healthy coping skill. So having I tell people therapy is almost like a mental coach. We help you reframe those thoughts and reframe that lifestyle and the way you've been talking to yourself so you can be kinder to yourself. If you're kinder to yourself, it kind of goes back to that preference, right? Like, we don't set ourselves up for disappointment. We also teach you how to not feel better, but find the ways to manage those emotions so that you can feel better about your emotions. Like, I want you to feel those emotions. There's no such thing as a bad emotion. Our emotions are there to tell us something is going on. If you feel sad, if you feel angry, somebody's violated a boundary or has harmed you emotionally, given you a soul wound, something, and it's actually your alert system. So to sit with your
Mhm.
emotions and learn how to process them, I think having a mental health professional can really help you sort out those thoughts.
So you're saying just burying them and ignoring them and distracting yourself with technology purchases and some drinks, that's not the right approach to
Or
setting those
heavy
goals.
weights, or heavy weights.
Or heavy weights, yeah.
Yeah,
Or weights that are way too heavy, right?
Mhm.
right,
Because there's
right.
different ways to torture yourself and ultimately not do that good. Um, so would you say that if someone were to come and say, you know what, uh, I I tend to go, my moods are feel a little too drastic, or
Mhm.
they come up and down. Is there a framework that perhaps you would present to them as like, okay, well, here's a few ways that we could potentially attack that here over the next few months?
I find that when our emotions are very high and they tend to swing a lot, it's not that they're swinging. We're just missing the fact that we're that word that you use, that we're suppressing. We're still feeling it, but we're trying to shove it down. We're trying to like put it down somewhere. And I tell people it's like that closet, like, companies coming over and you want to look clean and on your best behavior, so you shove everything in the closet. You just keep shoving things in the closet. There's gonna come a point where that closet's gonna explode, right? And you don't know when it's gonna explode. That's the part where that swing comes in. You don't know when you're gonna have that outburst. You've been pressing that swing all the way into the opposite direction that it's gonna de un solo, all at once. You know, it's just subconsciously, it's happening, it's escalating. And that's why I talk about the importance of feeling those emotions. It's better if you allow yourself to feel them in a range between a 4 and 7 than wait until it gets to 8, 9, 10.
Okay, wow, I'm just like thinking, hearing you and hearing some of the advice that my wife has given me, especially when I guess I'm taken to 9 or 10, when I actually sat down and really gave Encanto a real view and really watched that movie, or the latest season of Queer Eye. And I'm like, and Rachel's like, mm-hmm. Yeah, you should talk about those feelings maybe before these movies and these shows. And I'm like, yeah, but they really deserve that makeover. It's and yeah, that totally resonates exactly what you said. You push it down, but it's still there. It's still there, and you just maybe need to deal with it first. Mariana, so obviously, fitness is something that everyone tries to get ahead of in the beginning of the year. Did you know the second Friday of January is called Quitters Friday? I didn't know that.
Quitters Friday. Yeah.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that. But there's such a range of experiences when it comes to fitness, right? For someone, it may just be okay taking up a new modality or getting back on the bike. But what about for people that just haven't really prioritized it here at all recently? I mean, I can think of a million reasons why, it's just a very stressful time for a lot of folks. How about someone who's just wanting to do something but hasn't been active here recently? What approach do they take?
Well, a new year, just I think of it kind of like the time around your birthday too. It's a time of reflection. It's a time of like, where in this new chapter do I want to launch from? What do I want to bring in? What do I want to do away with? And so it's a reminder, and this has been at the forefront even at the beginning of the conversation. To Nancy's point, like resolution, like it's so definite. as opposed to like maybe a manifestation, like what is it that you want to bring in or change or shift or heal, like all of these things that you are kind of granted this new opportunity should you choose to take it. And a lot of people do take the new year as that time to where like we will start or embark on this. But there's a lot of pressure applied to it for some reason, especially in the new year, which is why more often than not, that's why this term even came about, Quitters Friday, because you put so much energy and effort into this like ultimatum that you've created for yourself. So truly, at least what I found is kind of easing in to what it is that you ultimately want. And if it's you just brought about like the way that goals have shifted or what we want, and if it is to take care of our finances, like what am I going to start to take care of, like small baby steps that I can do that maybe it won't ultimately affect like a huge, if I know what I'm earning and spending, and but like what are the little things that I can start to do. And same, it translates into fitness. Like I'm not going to tell myself I'm going to do a marathon right away when I just started running. Maybe that can be, again, that ultimate goal, but how do we keep things attainable and within reach so that 2 weeks in, we can start to feel the progress? I feel like I'm cutting out a little bit.
No, no.
Never mind. Okay. How do we start to feel like those little victories that will help generate motivation to keep going? And same for mental health. Like, how do I, if I start to shift or do this or become aware of this in like a very small sample level, that's where I think people have to start, even if they're just starting to create these for themselves. And I especially apply this to fitness because all of a sudden you want this grand sweeping thing, which is a great thing to have. Like lofty goals are always good to
Sure.
have. That's not a bad thing. But for those first 2 weeks, I almost always encourage dream small than dream big
Okay.
because you can then feel like that sense of progress. You can feel that things like every little victory is attainable as opposed to like throwing in the towel and being like, all right, like I have just proven to myself that I can't do this. So like we're back to square zero.
That sounds, yeah,
I
familiar.
wanted
Yeah.
I wanted to piggyback off of that because we do see when we see these goals, right? We want to be perfect with them, and I think it was Tunde who said it on one of her rides a long time ago, and it really stuck with me. It was we're looking for progress, not perfection, and that really stuck with me. And what I add to that is to see progress, we need to be consistent, and consistent doesn't mean every day. Consistency is actually more often than not. So as long as you're doing it more often than not, you're being consistent. So I love how Mariana was saying to break it down, the smaller goals, and kind of going back to the feelings and emotions. Like people are really like weirded out about having feelings or feeling feelings. Doing it in a safe place like a journal would be helpful. And even if you just journal, and I don't even like to journal, I'm a therapist. I'm not a journaler, but
Neither
I
am I,
will
yeah.
but I will journal on the new moon or the full moon, right? And I pick if I and you don't have to journal about your emotions, pick a quote, pick a prompt so that you don't have to be like, dear diary, da 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 da, today I did this and that, because that can get very repetitive. If you have that in you where something you want to express, putting it down on paper would be great, but also having a prompt or a quote just to reflect on can get those get allow you to feel more familiar with other emotions or feel some other emotions. And I know a lot of us, I know me personally, I have trauma of my mom finding my diary and reading it. So that's kept
Yeah.
me from from journaling. So I tell people we have
Mama.
technology. I know, right? We have technology. You can put it on your phone or on your iPad or something and put it behind a password. If you're worried about reading it again, you can burn it, you can rip it up, you can get rid of it. It's just to get it out. It gives it a place to live so that you can allow yourself these moments. And again, it doesn't have to be every day. The small steps, like Mariana was saying, are so important. Even if you do it once a week, once a month, give yourself that time to reflect. And that's allowing you to build that consistency because change takes time.
Absolutely. N- n- they absolutely, it takes time and it takes that consistency, but inevitably things come up, things that maybe it's not just I didn't feel like it or this and that, but things that actually do get in the way. I would imagine that's kind of a tough thing to deal with, and the negative self-talk comes in. What would you say is a strategy to deal with when life just gets in the way and you've got to take care of other priorities?
I think a strategy would be very much like an before I became a therapist, I used to be an EMT for the military. And we have to do, I worked in the ER, and you have to triage. And that's life. We're constantly having to triage like what's urgent, what's important, what can wait. And that doing it so far apart that when we do have an emergency, it throws your life a huge curveball, but you're able to do it more consistently. Like check in with yourself every evening or at the end of the week. Like what is really urgent? Because sometimes we think things are urgent. Like your boss sends you an email and you feel like it's urgent, and maybe it's something
Mhm.
that can wait, right? But we give it that sense of urgency, and now you've spent all this time doing something that's it's important but it's not urgent, and also giving time to the things that are important, which goes back to kind of checking in on yourself. What's your satisfaction level in the different areas of your life, your family life, your finances, your physical health, your mental health, your spirituality, education, or just like learning, like what are the different areas and how satisfied are you, and doing those little check-ins monthly, quarterly can help as long as you're checking in at some point so that when life does throw you curveballs, you can be like, oh, but I've been able to do this. I can put a pause, seeing it as a pause. It doesn't mean that's the end. It's a pause. Like we all pause it to go to the bathroom during a good show, right? We can pause all this great progress we've been making because life happens and we can pick it back up.
Got it.
Yeah,
Got it.
that's so true, Nancy. I think that we lose sight of, depending on what our priorities are when life is lifing and it throws you something that, the priorities shift and you have to take care of, Y becomes before X at this point. But there's no, I mean, this is going to sound really woo woo, but it's true. Like, especially as adults, like we just don't give ourselves a sense of grace that, oh my gosh, all of a sudden I had to prioritize this and take care of this. And that meant that something else had to go by the wayside for a time, for that pause, like you said. It doesn't mean that we can't pick it up, but a lot of times it's that like defining moment of like, well, like I stopped doing this, so like it goes in the garbage versus, okay, I had to stop doing this. Like, how do I pick it back up, or how do I bring it back into my life in a way that I can manage it at this point? And it's that one pause section that you have to like really take care of and have kind of self-awareness to, because a lot of us are like just like very like definite people, and you're like, oh well, like then fuck this. Sorry, I don't know if I can curse on
Yeah,
this,
of
but like
course.
we just like we tend to go to that place because perfectionism, because instant gratification, whatever it is that your MO is, but you don't give yourself grace to have the pause too. And that's a really important factor. Like, it's okay that this has to happen or this has to shift momentarily because that's the way that life works. But a lot of times it's like how you tell yourself that it is okay.
Definitely. I love that. It's just a pause. It's like watching a great show, or you have to put the book down at some point, right? And even if it's a great book, at one point that keeps rumbling in my head, and this may be overly Latino oriented, perhaps not, probably not, but so many of these goals that we hear about, people setting for themselves, whether it be health, losing weight, fixing their financial situation, or improving their career. We always hear about finding your purpose behind what you're doing. Now, oftentimes that purpose is I want to improve my health so I'm there longer for my family. I want to improve my financial situation for my family. I want to bring my career up or level up in my career for my family as an example to my kids. So it's almost like a, I, like this double whammy. It's like I have the potential of disappointing myself if I don't accomplish even the smallest of steps, but especially my family. So it's like this maybe both guilt and shame at the same time. You know, like do you encounter that a lot, Nancy, in your practice?
Oh, that's what my whole practice is based on. I think what we miss in this, because I think it is very important, but the one key factor that we miss is asking our family. We forget that. We assume that's what they want, and we don't ask them, right? So, for example, like I want
Right.
to, like financially, right? I want to do better. And there's nothing wrong with being financially well off. However, what is it going to cost you? Because if it's for your family, is it costing you the time that you're supposed to be spending with your family? And I always bring it to the eulogy, right? Like, what is your family going to say? What is your, at your eulogy, like at your funeral? Or even I think I reflect back for myself, it's like, I kind of knew we were struggling and poor growing up, but that's not what I like really focused on. I remember like the good times, like oh, like the time mom and dad did spend with us, when they were watching TV with us, when they were taking us out on certain trips. Those are the things that I focus on. They're not gonna say like, well, in our culture a little bit, but like, ah, era bien trabajador. Okay, ¿y qué más? ¿Y qué más? Like what else was he than just a great worker, right? Like
Supposed to be.
what yeah, what are the great memories that you made with your kids? And you find that sometimes we're spending so much time with the goal, but we haven't really asked them what they want. Like maybe having a family goal, a family, wish would be great. Like for this year, what does our family want to
What a
accomplish? Is
great
it
discussion.
mhm.
Yeah, what a great
I
discussion
love
for a
that.
family to have. I've never heard that. But it takes off of you the artificial pressure you've put on yourself based on what you think that they want. But
Yep.
how cool to sit down and say, okay, well, what do we want to do as a team here for the rest of the year? Wow, I really love that.
And it's interesting to see, I just got back to my family right now, closing out the year, and because I've prioritized, any free time I have to come see them. I want to believe that they value that, like the time, energy spent. But I'm definitely bringing that question in now because I see how we all function differently within our family dynamic too. So to kind of also assess and see, like, am I expending the energy in the right way or in a way that's serving this, or is it out of guilt that I'm doing this, or is it out of, what I think is, because oftentimes we all assume, but we never really have the dialogue about what is it or how are we best serving, especially if that is a primary focus, if that is the one thing, like for my family is part of the answer to a lot of our goals. How are we doing what we're doing?
Yeah, yeah. I think that that's a great point, Mariana. When are you doing some? Are you trying to improve something or make something better out of guilt? Because guilt typically isn't a great place to get started on any project. Not a good foundation, I wouldn't think.
It's not.
Unfortunately, I think it like informs a lot of how we do what we do.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
that's what most of the parenting has been in the Latino culture, right? On guilt. That's why we get a lot of our morals and values on guilt. But yeah, guilt can be a strong motivator and shame can be a strong motivator. But I think if we start to shift that dynamic, I love how Mariana said, like, really assessing where is this desire to do these things coming from. And maybe we would have less guilt or shame if we did it differently, or we asked more than assumed what it is that they wanted. I think that would be very helpful. Um, it'd be a good discussion.
Agree. Never heard a perspective like that. I love that
Mhm.
we touched upon that. Seriously, that I'm gonna write that one down for sure. I think it's great. So, moving into next year, pretty clear. I need to sit down and go through, do that emotional unpacking a little bit. Not can't do it all in 1 hour or in one sitting, surely, but definitely, I'm taking away that that's probably the most important step is really sitting down with yourself and figuring out what's making you happy, what's not, what areas of life you think you could improve on. But I want to hear from the both of you, like not necessarily your exact goals, but what is exciting? What's exciting for you coming up this year? What are you looking forward to?
I'll start, I guess. This it's interesting to see kind of coming back to where I was exactly a year ago. Try to spend the holiday at my parents' house, which brings me back to family and brings me back to like a checkpoint of how far I've come or things I want to work on. It's a really good place of reflection. Um, and I think I had these really lofty goals last year at the beginning to really tie in like a professional and personal sense that even though there were little victories, uh, in upon reflection, there were. But I think back on the beginning of the year, kind of like Quitters Friday, like a lot of it just kind of like blew up, just did not happen.
Right.
And so I want to practice what I preach in the sense of like just start small. That can be more attainable than that huge macro thing that I was trying to accomplish right away. I got ahead of myself and, in a sense, still prioritize professional things as I have. But I think a lot of my own personal well being, including my health and my personal life, kind of took a sidetrack. So I want to really put that at the forefront to start the new year. Because ultimately, like, I can't function as a professional if I don't take care of me. I can't function within my family if I
Literally.
don't take
Yeah.
care of that. Like,
Right.
so, and that often gets put last on the list. And for with all the guilt that is involved, sometimes you're like, oh, I'm putting myself first. Like again, it sounds very, but I think it's necessary for all the other things to start to come together, for my fitness to come together in the way that I want it, for my romantic life to come together, for my professional life, for my family life. Like all of those things have to will function based if I can just like and right now literally like my health because it took a downturn towards the end of the year and I ultimately think as I had this stomach bug that like literally took me out. It took me out of every plan, everything I had. And in some weird sense, I think it was like the universe kind of telling me to just like stop
Yeah.
it. And I hated it, but in a weird way, I think it was really necessary so that as I come into a new year, it sounds trite, but like I am grateful for the health that I have, period, bar none.
That's
And
great.
then from that point, like what are the things that I really want to focus on? Because everything else can easily get distracted from the priority.
For sure. Nancy, how about you?
Well, I have a couple this year. I'm picking up where I left off last year or earlier this year with the running. But I'm actually staying, I am doing running, but I'm doing shorter distances because I'm doing, it's called the Mammoth March, and it's a 20-mile hike in 8 hours. And I will be hiking Pocahontas State Park here in Virginia. And I'm really excited. So that's one of the big ones that I've been doing a lot of walking in preparation. And I'm actually slowing down more this year. I've decided to take the easeful year with my profession. I wasn't looking for a job. I was very happy. I am still very happy with my private practice, but I got recruited to be a mental health counselor at Quantico Marine Base. So I am,
Wow.
yeah, I'm working full time there. Thank you. So for sure, kind of going back, like I want to maintain that satisfaction with my movement, but more with my family. I have a soon to be 18-year-old and he's graduating. So it's my last couple months to spend with him before he goes off to college. And kind of going back to the question that I asked earlier, I've been asking him, is there something that I have left to teach you before you turn 18 or before you graduate? Is there something that you wish we would have spent more time on that I would love, like that I can give to you in the next 6 months? And that's where my intention and my focus is on my son, and then learning how to be an empty nester with my spouse. We just had our 18-year anniversary last month. So, what does it look like to be kidless again? You
Right.
know,
It's exciting and
It
daunting,
is.
and
It is.
all
That's
the things. Yeah.
amazing.
I need to
Eh,
it
reach
just got
my feelings
emotional right
wheel.
now that you said it.
I'm. You have the greatest questions. Like, what else do I have to teach you that we just haven't gotten to? I would never ask my kid. That's a great question. I would never ask him because I just know his answer is gonna be like, seriously, man. Like, you're not gonna teach me anything at this point. But no, what a great question that is. On my side, I'm just super excited about next year because I've discovered this podcasting thing and I've fallen in love with it. It's given me something very tangible that makes me happy. And it's talking to interesting people about topics that interest me and just being as curious as I want to be. And it's been really exciting. And that's actually led me to starting a business next year. So early next year, I'll be starting a business that I'll be sharing. Thank you. Thank you. But I have very much set the goal of actually thinking about my mental health next year. I I really want to consider it, take more active steps in it, and I can tell you that the number one thing that I've already put in practice that I really want to do far more of next year is actually avoid as much news as I've been consuming over the last few years. It's something that I love. That whole world of politics. It's something I'm fascinated by. But I think that there's a healthier way to participate in that, and it's not the constant sort of inundation of information in that. So hopefully that will lead to far more calm and less. I'm pretty sure it's going to lead to better health outcomes.
Mhm.
I simply want to do more exercise for sure.
It's Nancy said something in the beginning of this conversation, but it truly is like they all function hand in hand. Like it's like this chain reaction that,
Agree.
a lot of times, if that part, if you're grappling with stress or anxiety about what you're reading or consuming, it'll automatically affect not just obviously your mental health, but like your desire to go out or move, or it all just kind of coexist together. So holistically, you start to see how, if I approach this way, or if I like put energy into consuming less of this, it'll give you more time for that. So hopefully, you'll start to see kind of the chain reaction that has.
For sure, for sure. Well, Mariana, Nancy, as every time we talk, I feel a little bit smarter. I feel a lot more calm in some way. And so I really thank you for taking the time out, right here in the middle of the holidays to have this conversation. I know it's taken time away from your family, but I can't thank you enough for your generosity of both time and spirit as always.
Thank you for holding space. I appreciate always a great conversation with you too.
No,
Thank you.
it's good to check in, and I hope that for this new year, upon reflection and in how we move forward, I know that I'm definitely taking in some of what both of you said and trying to implement that, and just to give yourself a little grace as we head into a brand new year.
Yep. And I'm definitely going to ask my wife, do you really need me to lose these 10 pounds? Is this, I know I'm pretty sure you want me to have, a six pack, but do you really need me to have a six pack? And that would take at least 40 more. So let's just put that up below. All right, guys, have a great one. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.